Is a part of Live Thursdays, so this will be a live Q&A session with myself and with Roderick Casilli. We're going to be talking about some goal setting. We're going to be talking about how to set goals for futures traders, some mistakes when it comes to that kind of a process. And of course, there's going to be lots of chat about prop trading challenges, methodologies that professionals use, and how you can get better in your own trading. All right, so let me first see who's in the room. If I can ever get with these streaming platforms. All right, whoever's in the room, say hi and let us know where you're from. It's about time that we get to know some of you guys. Hi, Christian. So where are you joining us from? How do you wow, that's a name. Loy? I've totally butchered that. I'm so sorry. Hi, Claudio. Hi, Tony. Very good to see you guys. Christian from South Africa. You wouldn't happen to be Sebastian's friend, would you? Because he was talking about a Christian. Egypt, right. Loe. Okay, I see. Very nice name, actually. Philip, hello. Hello, Florida. Yes, wow. Chicago, Doe Trader, amazing. Well, I'm in London, as you guys know. We are absolutely roasting here. So I'm, oh, Claudia, you're in London. London, okay, cool. How are you doing with a heat wave? Tony, Huntsville, okay, Alabama, wow. All over the place, that's amazing. That's absolutely amazing. Yeah, so London has been going through a horrible, horrible heat wave. So yeah, every year around July, we kind of tend to get these really bad, humid, hot, disgusting weather. And even though everybody complains here when it's really, when it's really hot and rainy, you can't please us. We're either like, oh my God, it's just raining. And then on another side, we're like, oh my God, no, it's too hot. It's too hot. But everything starts off really optimistic. You're like, oh my God, yes, we can get a barbecue and let's get the pedal pool out. Because that's what we do here. And then as the humidity sets in, you're just sat outside and you're realizing that it's too hot. You can't breathe. It's not nice. It's not like somewhere like kind of tropical where it's like really cool. Yeah, I've been to Florida. Rain Wonders says I'm in Florida, so it's always a heat wave here. But strangely, it's not as. It is a bit swampy. It's a bit swampy because I've done some songwriting in Orlando like half an age ago. Oh, Claudio, stuck at home with COVID. Oh man, I feel for you. Feel for you. Yeah, I had COVID in April for the second time, and it was not as bad as my first one because the first one caused a whole bunch of issues. But yeah, the second one, a little bit of a fever here and there, and fatigue. So that was the worst thing. Yeah, so Florida, really humid as well, but somehow it's a lot more pleasant. Same thing with LA. Every time I'm in LA, it's like, yeah, it's hot, but it's dry heat. And I come from Mediterranean countries, so, I do know how, hot weather should feel like. No, London is disgusting. So hopefully I'll survive here with the help of my tiny little cooling fan. That's what you call them, isn't it? I can't even talk, like my brain is completely scrambled. All right, let's have a look at some charts while we wait for Rod to pop in. I did send him an invite earlier. Sometimes he's a bit late because he's a busy man, our Uncle Rod. So I'm just going to keep an eye on that. So how do I do that? Right, keep an eye on that. But I'm going to share my screen because earlier I was talking about talking about this setup here, which was my failed auction trade during post-NY cut time zone. If you're on the program, you'll know what that's all about. Basically, we don't just sit there looking for trades all day long. There's like particular parts of the day when we want to see some setups. And every Thursday around, what's that, 10:30 Eastern, 10:30 a.m. Eastern, I do a little coaching session for members that basically involves using all parts of the methodology to kind of help you guys out to really get everything together, all the puzzle pieces, and all of that. Claudio, value acceptance. Is it also valid in day range fill or just after the opening? It has the highest probability of working out after post NY cut. The later it gets in the day, it gets a little bit iffy to kind of keep going with the value acceptance. However, it depends what you're trading. It's always about context. So if you are someone who's trading equities, then yes, a late value acceptance can be completely valid. I've also seen crude oil have very late value acceptances, whereas things like gold, not so much. So there you go. Everything is always about probabilities. You need to, that's the thing that takes the longest, really. So it's not just about knowing your levels, it's also knowing the time of day when the setup has the highest probability of working out. Blanco is from Dallas, Texas. Hello. Okay, very nice. Very, very nice. So a lot of US and a little bit of UK. Not bad. For me, when it comes to this crude oil, which is probably what Claudia is asking about, I would be looking to fade this at some point. Not now, obviously, because we don't have anything turning around. It's just kind of shooting up. But if it kind of runs out of steam and starts to consolidate, maybe for the last hour of the electronic trading, that can be an option. So yes, in crude oil, it can be a valid setup. One thing putting a wrench in the works in this particular value acceptance is the fact that the all average ranges have been busted already on the day. So that kind of puts a bit more of a difficult twist on the whole value acceptance setup late in the day. But because it's crude oil, definitely not unusual to have that final move happening pretty late in the day. If you see, today it's been kind of like a slow crawl upwards, and that's also quite typical for the summer months. Very lively during the initial balance, which is the first hour of trading. So when the exchange opens, the first hour of trading is called the initial balance range. So yeah, interesting, but for me, this would be more of a fade opportunity rather than kind of trying to squeeze a trade in out of a value acceptance that is not really working within the statistical ranges. So this would be a bit odd for me. All right, my trade in gold, which is what I've done earlier, was just a very simple failed auction trade, post downward cut. It messed around a little bit in the middle during the second TPO after I entered, but ultimately went to my full 2R. So a bit of drama, but overall kind of textbook. So that was the most obvious trade for me. Today, I didn't really do another one. I did have a level around the value area edge on crude oil. So it was this area here. But that didn't happen, so no trade, okay? You have to be very patient. Oh, there he is. Welcome, Roderick. Hello, hello.
Hey,
What's up?
I don't know if my microphone's working right, so I'm playing around with it.
Okay.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you just fine. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Cool.
Tony, yes, you're still here. Are you still there? Question, still there? Yes. Yes,
Am
we
I
are.
still
So
here?
yeah, you're still there. I'm still there. Everybody's
Okay,
still
good.
here.
Good. Gotta figure out how to.
What are you having issues with?
something happened with my Windows iOS, and it's not allowing me to set the playback device into my headset, so it's coming through the speaker. You know that whole
Right.
fun stuff.
Yeah. I always have issues. Like today, I wanted to do this thing on. Have you seen Twitter Spaces? I don't know how much you use Twitter.
No, I don't use it much at all.
Yeah, I quite like it, but there was like this thing that appeared like a few days ago. It's kind of like a little podcast, but you can do it on the fly. So I thought, oh yeah, great. I mean, this would be awesome for just like a short overview at the beginning of the exchange, and you. Supposedly you have an option to record it, so I clicked the button to record it, and it crashed, and it kept crashing on me, and I was like, well, this is shit. So in the end, I just kind of ended up doing it in real time, so whoever was there was there. That's it. But hopefully, it's going to be a little bit less buggy going forward. Otherwise it's a bit useless, and I won't be continuing on with that. All of the live streams and stuff, I always seem to have some kind of problem with it, even though I'm pretty techie and pretty nerdy and I know what I'm doing. But somehow all of the stuff keeps crashing on me. So I'm like, what? Am I radiating some weird frequency? What is going on? So yeah, maybe you're having the same thing. You're vibrating so high up that all the electronic devices are breaking.
I've never seen this before. It's like the playback devices are not coming through. So whatever.
That's annoying.
Yeah.
Probably a sound card issue, maybe, of some sort. Yeah. Oh, well, we can't hear you. Hopefully you can hear us too. I thought today to have like a rough topic for what we're doing should be kind of goal setting, mistakes with goal setting, and just generally things with concerning like immeasurable goals and how that impacts bad trading decisions and how you can kind of turn that around. So I'm going to start. What prompted this? On the last live stream, at the end, somebody asked about the books that we read. And obviously, I think I said Trading in the Zone. But I remembered a book that you actually mentioned, Rod, which was a while ago, like 5 months ago, obviously when we met. I went through your course, and then you mentioned the miracle equation. And I thought, oh, yeah, that's a good book. So one of the things that kind of stuck with me in there was don't keep your eyes on the prize, because you'll trip up on obstacles along the way. And that's something that can be directly related to trading. So if you're doing a prop challenge and you're just focused on that target and you get yourself into a drawdown for whatever reason, that can be a bad thing because most people are just chasing the target instead of having a look at how you can, how far away you are from the trading drawdown and how you can effectively scale down your position sizes to make sure that you stay within that. Never mind the target. Target is like gone. It's like so far away at that particular point of the day and your journey. There's no point talking about any funded accounts. And that's the mistake that I see quite frequently. So Rod, can you share some of your experiences with people that you've worked with, stuff that you've seen, some mistakes that people make? Go.
Yeah, I mean, I think the first is thinking about profits on a daily basis in a linear kind of thing. Obviously, we keep score with our P&L, but I like to think risk first on a daily basis. We talk about this a lot here on these interviews. So establish a risk budget for the trading session. But then when it comes to profit, understand that that's a process and it really takes care of itself. And there's a lot of people focus on, how long X will it take me to do Y? And they're almost always referring to make money. And I like to flip that equation around. How long X, how long can you avoid large losing days and control your risk and advance on that aspect of your trading skill? Because then the profits and things will take care of themselves. So it's a simple mind shift. And for those that are not familiar with the miracle equations, or like I named Hal Elrod or something like that. And I mean, he went through some serious stuff like stage cancer and all these kinds of things. But you can apply it to anything in life. He actually has another book just about morning routines, choosing the day and starting the morning right. But the equation is really simple. It's unwavering faith. And that's what Deeyana and I are here to try to help you guys with, is just the faith that this is possible. I mean, we really do make money, and in some instances, a lot of it. And I know that's the goal for everybody, but in order to accomplish anything, you have to have faith that it's possible. So hopefully we're here helping to reinforce that. And then you have to put in an extraordinary effort. Now, if you like trading and enjoying the process, this is not laborious. It's extraordinary effort that is required. So those are the two components. And with that, not only is something probable, but it's inevitable.
Yeah, absolutely. So there it is. So those are some of the mistakes: focusing on profits, not really taking risk into consideration, and really setting a goal. Like another thing that stuck with me from Hal's book was the goal of setting a goal is not to reach that goal. It's actually to make an identity shift and to develop characteristics as a person that will enable you to reach the goal at some point. And again, it's not a trading book, but it directly relates to trading. Because in order for you to get funded, you need to go through so many different steps. And none of it involves getting up every day and going, I will be funded, I will be funded. It's not how you get funded. Okay.
Right.
You have to take
mantras and stuff. No.
Yeah, exactly. And mantras are all very well, but he actually flips the affirmations to a slightly different thing. So again, he says, don't focus on the final goal, focus on the steps that you need to take right now in order to get closer to that goal. So once you start thinking about that, everything changes. Like everything changes. All right, guys, let's take some questions. Earlier, I kind of went through everybody to see where everybody's from. So we got South Africa, Egypt, Florida, Chicago, London, Alabama, like Dallas, Texas. So we've got so many people from like different parts of the States and the world. So that's pretty cool. So let's take questions, guys. Come on, throw questions at us so we can get a little bit of interaction with you guys as well, because you are a part of this whole thing, obviously. And in the meantime, I'm still staring at this crude oil. I'm going to share my screen quickly. It's just gone on a run, so I'm not sure we're going to get that fade. Claudia actually asked one of the questions about the late value acceptances, and I said that that's case by case, depending on what you're trading. Gold, not so much. Late value acceptance doesn't really tend to happen, and if it does, it's usually a fake out. But crude oil, it is definitely a possibility, and now we have a full rotation through value. So there we go. That's an unusual event, but also not so unusual for the summertime. I haven't looked at equities today, Rod. What's happening over there?
So we're putting in some V bottoms and now frying some toads on the short side that decided they wanted to get short prior to prior sessions VPOC. So the NASDAQ has recovered really nicely. We still haven't undercut the lows from back in the middle part of June. But yeah, so for me, we're outside value. We're inside day on a couple of things. The NASDAQ stayed inside day from the morning session, but the S&P, the Dow Jones were on their lows, and now everything is reversed pretty nicely into the afternoon.
Yeah, interestingly, yesterday I shorted NASDAQ pretty late, and it's actually right back at that area. So that was the supply that I was looking at getting created yesterday. So this is the kind of stuff that happens, if you know where to look, it's the kind of stuff that happens quite a bit. So you have an area where a lot of selling happened in the previous session, and then the market kind of moves away from it, comes back to it, and then you see more selling happening in the same, like literally the same zone.
We're just trading in the entire range that was established from the CPI number yesterday. So I just hit my Discord group telling them that I'm not interested in being short until basically the open of the second candle. So it's around 925s. I'm targeting 925s. If you look left to that candle that we opened, the one that dropped, the open.
Sorry, I'm looking at NASDAQ.
Yeah, NASDAQ. So the candle from yesterday, it's from the CPI report. There's a big, huge candle.
Oh, this one. Yeah.
Yeah, the open of that candle is 925. So that's where I'm targeting my short.
I see.
for today's session if we get there. I don't think we're going to get there. I bet you we stay contained right in here, but that's where I'm targeting a short.
Yeah, some ranges have been busted as well. So the session
Yeah.
range and average daily range. So that was another confluence that I was looking at here with that particular thing. So it's definitely an area of interest that I would be involved with. But this is where differences between Rod and me come in. So we're kind of looking at the same zone, but he's looking a little bit higher. And I've got this like supply area from late yesterday that I was interested in. So again, very complementary. And another thing to take note there is that once you've stared at the markets long enough, you will eventually get to all of these stats and observations and behaviors by yourself. It's just that it takes such a long time to get there, right? So this is why having someone who has been through all of that, and we've done it all, we've tried it out, we know what works, we know what doesn't work. It really is a shortcut. So definitely need to take advantage of people's experiences if you don't want to be bumbling around for the next 7 to 10 years. What's happening? Come on, guys. A question. What's everybody trading today? Have we traded? And what are you trading? Ray has gone off to do some golfing today, so he's not joining us.
We allow that?
Yeah, he's allowed that. Yeah, why not? He works pretty hard and he's got, loads of stuff on.
Here in LA, there's
day
definitely no one works or does anything. Like no matter what time I have to go anywhere, there's 10 million people here. There's people. I had to go to a business lunch yesterday, and I had to put on actual shoes. I couldn't wear flip flops or whatever. And it's kind of nice at this stage in my career where the number is really, really high if someone wants to give me money. So I usually figure out that it's not going to happen. But this couple wanted to, so we'll see what happens. But anyway, I went to this place called the Grove, which is in this hipster part of LA.
I've been to the Grove. Yeah.
You've been to the Grove, yeah.
Yeah,
it has like an 8-story parking lot. It's full in the middle of the day on a Wednesday.
No.
Like completely. I know it's summertime. I get that people are on vacation, but I mean, not only that, the freeway the entire way there was full. So everyone's on the freeway, everyone's in the parking lot, everyone's everywhere.
Wow. It's crazy. I actually went to something called Battersea Power Station here. I don't know whether you know that. It's like an iconic building, but they've rebuilt it. It was like empty for many, many years, and it used to be rented out by like film crews and stuff. So a lot of movies were made inside it. I think one of the Batmans was filmed partially in there. And it's an iconic building. It's beautiful, absolutely beautiful. So what they've done, it was a nuclear power station back in like 50s, 40s. And then they rebuilt everything. So now they're making apartments, and it's where Apple's new HQ is in London. So a lot of people have moved in, and they have a car park, but it's not that big. It's really not that big. I don't know what they were thinking when they made the car park. Like, I think it might hold like maybe 150 cars, like maybe 180, which for that area where you're supposed to have like 150,000 people moving in, it's a little bit of a, like, what are you thinking? I don't know who builds these things. And I don't know whether they're going to maybe have another car park. But yesterday there's a shop in there that I really like because they have like ketogenic stuff, and it's kind of like a general store, but they've got all the stuff that I want. So I went in there, and I kid you not, I was cruising around the car park for about 15 minutes trying to see whether somebody's going to come out, and that's never happened before. So obviously everybody's moving in. Everyone is like, you can hear all of your Americans are in there because obviously Apple is moving in. So I was like, okay, interesting. Yeah.
Well, you guys are going to get overrun now. The UK looks very, very smart for never joining the euro, but I'm thinking of popping over to Portugal or something. I mean, we're at parity now, so like my buying power is double. I could just rule the roost over there.
Yeah,
for 20 grand a month, live like a king.
Someone is from Florida here. Rain wonders. So I actually went to Florida in 2008, and the pound to dollar was like 184.
Yeah.
And I mean, it was ridiculous, the amount of money that like my money went so much further than it does in here. I was shocked. I went into a shop and I bought like a whole bunch of stuff, like designer stuff, everything. And it was like peanuts. It was nothing. I was like, what? How can this be? So yeah, it was crazy. Obviously, those times are not here anymore because
No, the dollar is ridiculously strong.
yeah.
I mean, this is going to be very interesting for
The
for the
rate
next
hikes,
several months. Yeah.
rate
Yeah.
hikes, man. It's a direct correlation always. So yeah. All right, so Nasdaq is still making up its mind. The liquidity in Nasdaq is hilarious. It's all just like up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down. Like I don't think I've ever seen a market do that. Even crude oil, it kind of does these extended moves and then it pulls back. But Nasdaq has this like intra candle activity that's like quite crazy.
Well, it's completely broken, both the Nasdaq and the
Yeah,
MNQ, because it's moved around by $6 trillion companies,
yeah,
and
and it's
there's
a thin market. Yeah.
it's a thin market. I mean, it trades 2 million. It can trade 2 million contracts for the day often, so the actual amount of trading is nice, but it's super illiquid at on the order book, and always will be. It's just broken. But
Yeah.
that's why you need to use levels, limit orders, campaign around price if you're going to trade the Nasdaq.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's very difficult to get any kind of a solid strategy with like a hard stop there. Even I'm a little bit kind of loose. I have a catastrophe stop when I'm trading Nasdaq, but I don't necessarily put like a super hard stop because you can't. It's like it just moves too much. So yeah, this is why I don't really recommend people starting with Nasdaq. I actually had someone who approached me and they're like, "Hey, yeah, can you coach me?" And I'm like, "Okay, what do you trade?" And he goes, "Just Nasdaq." I was like, "Ouch." Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a
So
tough
I
place
moved
to
him.
start.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of like just jumping in at the deep end and hoping for the best. But I don't think it teaches you good trading habits. You really need to start with something a little bit slower. Like gold is pretty liquid when it comes to commodities. That's like my one of my favorite products. So gold is quite, it behaves itself, but it's not super crazy, but it's still very, very liquid. Lots of opportunities. At least like 3 or 4 opportunities per day, actually per session. Just let me check if we're live because YouTube might be doing something weird. Because again, I've been having bad luck with some things over here, just like you.
Let me
I
see
don't know
if I
what it
can
is.
bring it up on my.
Because someone said we cut out for a second. Yeah, so we are live. I think. Are we live?
All right. Well, maybe we've instilled all the knowledge we can. They all know our story.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, I think we're live. Yeah. Okay, good. Oh, yes, but my bloody restream thing is not. Yeah, I see. Okay.
I
We
see
do have
questions coming through now that I don't see on the restream.
So do I. Yeah, me too. So
Oh, there's a
there's
lot of
something
stuff
weird
on
going
here.
on.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm gonna use that.
Yeah. Can you
Oh,
see the
interesting.
questions from the chat? Because I
I
see a bunch
can.
here. Yeah.
Yeah, I see loads as well. Oh no, my browser is about to crash. Ouch. That's annoying. Is it the browser or something's crashing? Hold on, let me try and shut some stuff down. Try and save it.
Do you want me to
Okay.
answer one of these that I see here? Addressed to me? Or can you hear
Yeah,
me?
yeah. Go. Yeah.
All right. So Blanco is saying that I mentioned that I'm developing a trade copier. Is it available yet? So we have actually stopped development on the Trade trade copier, and here's the reason: we have to wait to see what the Ninja to Trade bridge is going to look like. Now I know that many of you are going, "Oh, I want a replicator on Trade I don't want to have to place a trade on Ninja Trader and then have it replicate over to multiple Trade accounts." But they had us in beta, and then they pulled us out of the beta program, and then it's been delayed. So we don't have access to that. So we just temporarily put the Tradeovate development for a copier native to that platform on hold. And the other issue was Trading View. It looks like it's going to be impossible to actually break out the accounts so you can see multiple accounts at the same time without having to select them. So that's going to be a factor. So unfortunately, it's on a delay. But I can tell you that the crossing is real, meaning that if you have both platforms, you can enter a trade on Tradeovate, close it on Ninja, enter it on Ninja, close it on Tradeovate. So that's really cool. So if you know Replicanto and you have access to that, you will be able to trade to multiple accounts on Tradeovate.
Okay, cool. Yeah, something's going on with my computer here, actually. So,
we all have ghosts in our machines.
Yeah, very, very odd. So let me just check something with my connections and stuff. Yeah, I mean, none of it is. My CPU is a little bit hot. Okay, hopefully, I'm gonna have to go onto YouTube and read out these questions. So sorry, guys. This is the pitfalls of live streaming. So I'm actually gonna go into here. All right, so I can see stuff. For some reason, Restream is actually just messed up with the questions. Like the chat is not coming through. Okay, so where were we? Claudia says, the flea says, I was long MES at 27, got out when it rolled back to 65. Philip wants to know, how do you handle periods of drawdown? I've got to say, I don't have any serious drawdowns at this point. I mean, on most days that I trade, I do end up profitable, which is why I do this for a living. But I will say that if you do get yourself in a drawdown, there's a couple of ways to approach it. You can either try trading things and then taking 1Rs, or you can do a do or die approach. So if it depends what your hit rate is. It really depends what your hit rate is. If the quality of your setups are fine, or is fine, then it's more a matter of you not messing too much with the level that you're trading. So what happens quite frequently with drawdowns is that people get very biased. So they go doing stuff to the methodology, early exits and stuff, and then the trade goes straight to their target, but they're not in on it. And then they start blaming the method or something. It's like, no, it's not the setup, it's you. You're messing up the whole optimization by over optimizing. But sometimes you have traders who just have bad trading setups and they're not working. And it's usually because you're not using the high probability levels. So the first thing is to look at how you're trading. What levels are you trading? Are they actually turning around? Or are you just using nonsense levels that never turn around and just take you out immediately? Because depending on which one of those two you are, that will change the way I would advise you to approach drawdowns. Rod, what about you? How do you advise people approaching drawdowns? Because I don't imagine you've got many drawdowns either.
No, I mean, I still suffer. I did a video a little while ago when my YouTube channel was just starting up about a pretty deep drawdown that I took in some of my managed accounts, which are swing trading, where I'm just holding positions. So those can go against you and you can get stubborn. But on a day trading session, I got it really dialed in. And then what I try to do in the room as well is just, practice what I preach, show that you can trade ridiculously small and control risk. And that because for a lot of people, a drawdown is just one big loss generally, where they just didn't manage risk well that time. Now you were discussing, a series of paper cuts that can happen as well if you're not in high probability areas, or you're not managing entries properly, or if you have a strategy that provides too many signals. So I think the advice is always the same: is you want to start first with your trading strategy and the levels, and knowing that you can be successful around those. And the final thing I'll mention is just a very simple technique I talk about it very often called the graceful exit, which is to look to scratch more trades. Now, don't do this all the time. Don't get jittery. But if you can look to get flat on an unprofitable position, there's no one that's come down from the heavens that has said, thou shall never move your stop, but also thou shall never take a trade off if it doesn't hit target. So become flexible. That helps as well.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so we've got a question about the CL. Traded CL from the bottom of the initial balance right after the first hour. As the initial balance was very wide and ending into the demand zone, I thought it would be a good setup. Valid or dumb luck? No, that's valid. You basically traded a post NY cut reversal. That's exactly what I want people to do. This is exactly what I talk about. Rod talks about graceful exits. I constantly bang on about post NY cut reversals. It happens because crude oil is a forex-linked product. It has a huge correlation with the Canadian dollar. Canada is one of the biggest exporters of crude oil. Sometimes I feel like I'm a parrot, just repeating the same things over and over. But, until you guys get it, I'm going to keep repeating it. So what you've done there, you've basically just taken a post-NY cut reversal. However, as it happened today, we had a non-trend day at that point. So that made it a little bit riskier. I would have been happier taking my gold trade, which is what I've done, as a failed auction because the institutional participants actually tested outside of the range and then came back into it. And then they just kind of pushed it up. But crude oil actually followed the same thing, except there was no pop outside of the initial balance, purely because COMEX opened slightly earlier. So obviously the C period is already kind of popped and gives fake outs quite frequently. Sorry, I'm just looking at crude oil here. So Claudio, what you've done a classic post NY cut setup. Yes, there's a daily demand, but there was also the fact that I'm going to show you where the average session range was exhausted. So if you look at here, these tiny little dots, I can't make them any bigger, but they will get bigger when the market hits them. There we go. So that's the exceeded average session range for post NY cut. That's after 10 a.m. Eastern. What happens? It turns around, and I'm guessing this is the trade that you were in on. So this is like a classic Market Stalker's method setup. That's the thing that I've quantified, I've observed it, and I've put it on the map. And I said, this is how I trade, this is what happens. I don't know why more people don't know about this, but if you observe crude oil long enough, at some point in that systematic framework, you will come to the same conclusion as well. Maybe it's because I look at the average session ranges, and I have looked at them for 14 years, that I was able to notice these kind of behaviors. But yeah, that's basically what you've done. All right. A says, I have a question about Frankie Fakeout. I get that London tends to reverse the Asia-Frankfurt session, but what happens if the Asia session goes up, Frankie Fakeout goes down, and London goes up? Okay, so you have to see the levels. You can't just do a Frankie Fakeout as an isolated thing. Any new session coming in can potentially reverse the previous session happenings, okay? So whatever the previous guys did, usually new session comes in, there's more volume, new players, and they're thinking, hey, this is a bit high up. We're not going to get paid here. So why don't we take it back down and then get a new position somewhere lower down? That's how you catch the ebbs and flows. It sounds like pretty simplistic, but the truth is you also have to have some kind of level that you are relying on. So either a value area edge or range from yesterday, or some kind of a statistical average, something that gives you a high probability reversal. In Rod's methodology, he uses the second standard deviation and VWAP. So, there's like these swings and roundabouts. So there's millions of ways you can quantify these levels, but at the end of the day, they all look pretty similar, and they will be located around the similar areas. So once you start setting the Frankie Fakeout into that kind of a framework, it will make more sense. So it's not necessarily as simplistic as Asia goes down, Frankie Fakeout goes up, where do I go now? You have to look at where you are, chart location, trade location, and then you can make up your mind whether the reversal there makes sense, or whether maybe you can wait a little bit longer into the session and then wait for the reversal. So patience. Ocean Blue wants to know, I'm curious if institutions need retail traders in the market. They don't. Rod, what are your thoughts? Do they need us? Do they need retail traders?
No. I mean, you've probably heard that 80-90% of all volume, New York Stock Exchange, European exchanges, Asian exchanges, crypto exchanges, and of course our futures exchanges, all algorithmic and quantitative.
Yep,
And if
84%.
anything, they're just preying on weak hands via various methods, but they don't need it for liquidity or for any reason. No.
Yeah, exactly. So no, they don't need us. We are such small fish in the whole thing. Even if you trade 150 contracts, that's nothing. Like the institutions trade 5,000 contracts. 10,000. It's ridiculous amount of money. They do not need us.
There are some minor exceptions in I say silly, I just mean contracts with very low liquidity that can actually lock limit up or down. So I don't know why anyone trades them anymore. But if you trade cotton or lumber or things like that, and especially out months, you actually can, just as an individual person, have some influence if you had enough money. But
yeah, because it's such a small market.
If we're talking about the big markets, it's not a factor.
Yeah. No. So S&P 500, no. Same thing with something like trading Brent crude, for example. That's a pretty thin market. And if you start, to be honest, when I was trading the first time, I was on a commodities desk, so I had to trade Brent crude as well. And I would put in a 40 lot contracts and like 40 lot position, and I could like see the market move like in that direction, and I was like, what is going on here? It can't be right. And then I started having problems with the fills. I would be like trying to get a 40 contract fill, and it would fill me 2, then 4, then I would click again, then it would fill another 2. It's just like a very, very small market. So you just don't have enough units per single price to get into the whole position all at once. And of course, every time you enter, there's another execution cost. So at the end of it, I learned a very hard way when my risk manager at the end, I racked up execution costs, right? So he was like, what? Well, why is your like commission so high for this month? And I was like, oh, I don't know what. So I looked at it, and sure enough, literally for every execution, you get an additional round trip cost. So you have to be very careful what you're doing in thin markets, which is why Rod and I don't really advise thin markets. I don't trade anything agricultural. I literally just stick to my crude oil, gold, NASDAQ, and ES. Those are my core markets. Sometimes I will be trading DAX. Other times I might dip my toe into like something like GBP New Zealand dollar if it's like moving particularly well. But yeah, apart from that, I'm pretty happy with just my core markets, and it's much easier. Takes a lot less time to do the analysis. So generally, I would stick away from any thin markets. Okay, so more questions. Let me see. Ocean, stop calling me old man. That's not nice. Okay, so yeah, again, A is still talking about the Frankie fake out thing. Okay. If they contradict each other, well, again, you have to see levels. Like, where are you in the overall market? Are you rejecting? Because you're not always going to get things that are kind of just moving up, then down, and up. It's not that linear. It's not that simple either. So it's a generalized idea that should happen. But if it doesn't happen, then obviously you have to see why and whether you have maybe a demand that we're turning around. And if that's the case, if you have a large time frame demand, usually you're going to get a unidirectional day. And in that case, any kind of a Frankie fake out or anything, even a whole post that I cut reversal is not going to be there. So it's all contextual. That's why we talk about situational fluency, we talk about circumstantial awareness, levels, and orientation points that can help you to make your decision. Yeah. It's very interesting to me that my this chat is just totally is frozen on Restream. It's so annoying. I can't even bring up the chat. All right, we have a potential fade happening in crude oil. Let me push this further. Do we have any more questions? So, Rod, do you do anything in regards to time of day, and do you have any strategy that relies on time of day? Because I know that you use the last 10 minutes maybe as a benchmark. Does that serve as any kind of an orientation in your approach?
I have a bunch of models that they're very specific to times of day. I don't teach or train on many of them. It's just not really worth it because various people can trade at different times. But generally, I think most trade rooms are focused around the cash open for stock indices and things. So the consideration is really important, right? So I talk about time of day all the time. But nothing where the actual strategy is dependent on it as much anymore. But yeah, you absolutely need to be aware of where you're at based on the session for the instrument that you're trading.
Yeah, exactly. I think commodities are a little bit more sensitive to that because you're looking at the forex option expiry every single day, so that tends to have a pretty large impact. It doesn't have an impact on equities at all, and I actually say that in the program. Ocean says, yeah, sorry, Dee, it's because you look really young, but you're worried about it. Of course I'm worried about it. You men, you all kind of age really nicely, and you just kind of become a bit rugged and stuff. Us women, we just go downhill, man. We just start looking like aunties. And it's like, yeah, great. So yes, I'm trying to, look presentable. I don't want to look like leathery skin and all of that. It doesn't bother me that much. It's just that I like to, I come from the entertainment world, and over there, what you look like and hair, that used to be like really big points. I remember doing that, it was like a reality music thing where I got hired to be a guitarist. It was in 2014, and it was on ITV, which is one of the major channels in the UK. So what happened is that I had pink hair, and I got hired to be a session musician. It was Andrew Lloyd Webber Search for the New Jesus Superstar, right? He was like doing a reboot. So I turned up with pink, screaming pink hair because, I used to have colored hair. The producers saw me and they picked me at the end of the day, but they forced me to, they had a whole meeting about my hair. Which I found utterly ridiculous. It's like, why are you having meetings about my hair? And they forced me to dye it black because they were like, no, it stands out too much. You're a session musician. It's great, but, let's just kind of tone it down a bit. So I literally had to dye my hair black. And, coming from somebody who's been in the entertainment industry for over 20 years, that's kind of ingrained in me, which is why I kind of mention it fairly frequently. I did an interview with Corbs on Saturday, Rod. Yeah, so Aaron reached out, so we did an interview, and we were kind of talking, and then my age kind of came up. So he was like, oh, so what do you do for, skincare and stuff, collagen? I was like, well, it's interesting, yes. And then I did say to him, yeah, I do Botox. Like, who doesn't? And he goes, oh, okay. Yeah, he was like writing it down. And I'm like, well, I'm glad that you're writing it down. So ridiculous. Hi, Xavier. Good to see you here. All right. A says
he did an interview with Lindsay Duff from You Profit, and he said it was the first woman trader he's ever even spoke to.
I know. Yeah. So I was.
Man, you got to get out of the house a little more, brother.
I know. Fuck no. Well. Yeah, it was. I watched the interview as well, and I was like, "You've never met a woman trader? What happened?" Because there isn't that many of us, but there are women traders. Like even I've met them in my journey. So I usually get a lot of guys, but I've met like at least 30, 40 women. It's ridiculous that he's never met anybody. All right, let's see. A says, for momentum trades, I find the best time of NY session is soon after the initial balance is formed, when the market makers have done their thing, but there is still high volume. What's the latest I would enter one? Is that a question for me, A? I suppose it is. The latest that I would enter in that first part of the session would be like 10 minutes to lunchtime in New York. So you're in the UK, aren't you, A? So that will be 10 to 5. Depends on what I'm trading. Again, sometimes if I'm trading gold tends to have these like really nice reversals during the lunchtime as well. So if I enter the post NY cut trade, I will keep it if I think there's merit to keep a trade. A says again, pertaining to that, would you say after an hour has passed from New York initial balance, avoid them as it's too close to line? No, I wouldn't say avoid them. It really depends. It depends what you're trading. Ocean Blue, well, that's a good question. How young can a kid be to be taught to trade well? How can we be to trade by the time we can deal with it? Serious thought-provoking question. Rod, why don't you take this one?
How young can a kid be?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, every person's aptitude is different, but I mean, you see on YouTube, you see little kids playing the piano proficiently at 3, a couple years earlier than Mozart. So it's a skill like anything else, and I would suspect that people that have a propensity for numbers and like visual price patterns, and it's an interesting question. I never really thought about it. I mean, one of the things about kids is they don't have the runway beneath them that we do as adults, so they could just approach it with a clean slate. So I would say
before life hits them on the head, and
any price you want. I mean, I know that Robinhood got a bad rap for making it too much gamification and too easy and too accessible. But overall, I think it's a good thing. The more people that are exposed to capital markets and this wonderful world of trading.
Do you know what? I think risk management and day trading should be taught in schools, because it's such a great skill. And, it's not a matter of it being complex. It's not exactly rocket science. It's just that it takes so many different components before you can actually trade properly. So in that regard, the earlier you can start, the better, really. But again, if you have somebody who doesn't like learning, like I'm sorry to say, but one of my nieces she just hates learning. The other one, the older one, is great. She's just finished. She just graduated from university. But the younger niece, oh my God, like she won't learn how to drive because it involves a test. And I'm a little bit disappointed at that, because I'm like, come on, I mean, you at least need to learn how to drive. And she's like, no, I don't want to. No, it just makes me sick. And she was not particularly good at school. And so if you're somebody like that and you have a kid like that, it's probably not the best choice to just go, hey, why don't you learn how to trade? Because trading and learning how to trade is about continuous development. You never really stop learning. And even after 14 years, I'm still finding ways to tweak my approach, to do stuff. Speaking of which, let me just enter into this crude oil trade. Let's do that. Okay. So I'm fading the crude oil trade here. It's not the highest probability here because we have a value high, but because we're kind of running out of time, I'm sort of thinking, well, where else are they going to go? And sure, I might be wrong, but I've done these kind of trades before, so might just kind of skim 1 hour and be done with it. So we'll see. All right, let me have a look. Do you have any setups into the market close, Rod?
No, I mean, I'm trading around some of the I'm trading around some of the stock indices a little bit from the short side on these pops, but really
Yeah.
small size. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm pretty small with this. It's half my normal risk. I've actually made a nice amount of cash today. So I don't really want to kind of jeopardize that. This is something that I do position wise. If I've had a really good day and I really want to like trade one last trade because I think I see an opportunity, I will cut the size right down. And then it's just like an additional thing that you add on to the profit. And if you lose it, it's not a big deal. It's just like a tiny fraction of your overall P&L for the day. Blanco is asking, have you read the book, The 12-Week Year? Oh, yes. I've read the book, The 12-Week Year, so much so that I even included it in the program. It's actually the last lecture in level 2, I believe. It was actually one of the books that really transformed the way I looked at goals. So some of my goals were to not try and focus on a million things all at once. I pinpointed the biggest issues that I had at the time, and then I worked on them for about 6 weeks at a time. And then I would review to see how well I've done, whether I followed the rules or not, and what kind of results I got from them. And then I would kind of tweak it. It was a very, very good way to push your abilities further. So one thing that I would say is to just focus on one thing at a time. So don't go, oh, I've got a problem with moving stop losses. I've also got a problem with overtrading. And I've also got a problem with not taking targets and not taking profits. Oh, and I'm also trading a lot, wrong times of day. I'm blah, blah, blah. So that's too much. It's too much. Pick one of those that is harming your performance the most and try and tackle it. Never mind the rest of it. Just try and tackle the biggest problem. That's why on my interactive quiz, one of the questions that some people get is, what is your biggest issue that you perceive is hindering your performance? And most people know what the biggest issue is. It's not like, oh, yeah, it's just like some kind of a weird thing. I don't know what I'm doing wrong. Most people know what they're doing wrong. Rod, have you heard about the 12-week year?
No, I'm not familiar with that. Sounds like it's around goal setting.
It is. It's basically, the premise of the book is that 12 months is too long a period. So when you have a company, they set budgets for the year, but then as the year kind of trickles down, the budgets change because the goals are not met and everything just starts changing. So by the end of the year, they have a plan that looks nothing like they actually had at the beginning of the year. So what this guy does for a lot of people and a lot of businesses is to come in and to set the 12-week period as a goal-setting standard rather than 12 months. And he's been able to help a lot of people turn their businesses around and stay within budgets a lot closer. And that directly relates to trading as well. And it was one of my revelations, definitely. So if you haven't read it, definitely read it. It's quite good.
Cool.
Blanco says, very insightful answer, Dee. Thank you. I enjoyed the book. I'm very glad. Ocean Blue says, always impressed by Dee's skill. Takes a trade mid-sentence, just like washing. Well, yeah, we'll see how this works. I'm always relying on probabilities, time of day, and all that good stuff. But yeah, I just saw it developing. Rod does the same thing. One of the reasons why he's constantly like looking around is because Rod is trading. He's always in trades.
Sorry. I'm all the time. And I have 2 huge screens and then 6 down here. So there's a lot to process.
Yeah.
And I'm just padding to a pretty profitable day. So
yeah. Blanco says, yes, knowing that every week is a month pushed me to get my act straight because I hate being behind. Well, that's a very good motivation. If you hate being behind, it's great. It pushes you to constantly work on yourself and your skills. I'm always someone who likes to push things forward. I never do things halfway. I started doing fitness, go back into fitness. What did I do? I wasn't like a normal person or just going to the gym. No, I had to sign up for a fitness competition. And not only that, on my very first fitness competition, I actually won my category, which was, I admit it was a shock to me because there was like 22 women on stage. I'm usually in the over 35 category, the oldies, the old oldies. and 22 girls. And I've never done this before. It was like really outside of my comfort zone. You're standing there in a bloody bikini in front of 2,000 people in the arena. And you're, you know, I worked on my posing. I come from the entertainment world, so it was fine. But then when they read out my number and my name, because they went from 5th, 4th, 3rd, 2nd, and when they announced the second name, I was like, oh well, you know, I couldn't really expect to win the first time. And then they said, I think it was 181 was my number, and then they said Deeyana Angelo, and I was like, that's me. And you can see the photo as well. I'm so shocked. Like they gave me the trophy, and I'll have this like ridiculous grin on my face because I was genuinely shocked. And it's just a plastic trophy. It doesn't mean anything. Later on, I kind of went into the pro leagues where you do make some money out of it, but it's not that much. It just kind of just about covers all of the costs of personal training, the bikini, because those bikinis are bloody expensive, man. They're like, they go into £1,000, £2,000 easy, like easily.
Man, for a bikini, I'm in the wrong business. That's like that has no material to it.
Yeah, but they've got like rhinestones and stuff and everything. I should have actually. I think I've got one. I don't know whether I should get it out to show you why it's so expensive, because it's a very, very elaborate design. I'll actually bring it up instead of me getting up and rumbling around. I'll just do a Google search. So, and it's a WBFF style bikini, which is a particular federation. It's kind of like a fitness model thing rather than a bodybuilding competition. There are slight differences in posing styles and stuff. So let's see.
You can send me one. We can do who wore it better.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Do a pose off. Yeah.
The pose off. The who wore it better.
Yeah, something different this week. Okay, so
when I'm in Vegas, I train with this guy that's he's pretty famous.
Yeah.
And he's a young, really good-looking fitness model, and it's just so funny because he just has no idea what his body's going to feel like when he's 52, like I am. So I always joke, like, he's like, well, if that hurts too much, you can do it this way, or you can do it that way. I'm like, no, this is the way I'm going to do it. Not about if it hurts too much. It's just like, I'm not 26 like you are.
Yeah, they don't get it. I've also, because I'm 42, and I had young, a much younger person than me who was my first coach, and she was like 24. Dude, when I was 24, the only thing I needed to do to get fit is to skip a meal. Like, gym? Are you kidding me? It's like, no. But now at 42, I have to do like, in order to get really fit for the competitions, it's like an hour's cardio plus 90 minutes in the gym, like 6 times a day. And if I miss a beat on my diet, that's it. The pouch comes back, and I'm like, bastard. It's so frustrating.
Definitely changes.
Yeah. Okay, so actually, this is the one that I was in on as well, but they don't have me there, luckily. So these are some of the bikinis that they have. So it's so elaborate. There's so much stuff that goes in them. So look at that. Like, so many jewels and rhinestones and stuff. And that they're so expensive. It's ridiculous. This one is actually on the cheap side. So yeah, so you can see it, and then you have theme wear and stuff. It's absolute mad, and it's a big business. The whole thing about the competitions, it's a huge machine. So you have the coaches. They're specifically designed to their programs to just cater for the fitness people. Actually, your friend, he probably did go through WBFF as well, because in Vegas they have the Worlds every single year. That's one of the federations that I'm with.
Oh, I don't know if he he's like an internet guy, like millions of YouTube video. Yeah, I don't think he ever competed. Fitness model, he was like, I mean, like as a model for photographs and stuff like that. But I don't know. I could ask him. I'm not sure.
Yeah, ask him, because you might be surprised, because all of them at some point did a competition, and that's how you get a lot of networking and stuff. I even started doing stuff as a fitness model, but then that whole world really annoyed me, because you have people who are only talking about their muscles and how much they can press and I'm like, dude, I'm just doing it to stay healthy. Like, I was pre-diabetic before I started my fitness journey. I'm just trying not to die. And some of them are like, how much can you squat? And I'm like, you know what? I have a really bad knee, so I actually don't do squats. And they're like, what? You don't squat? I'm like, no, because bad knee. I don't want to be in hospital. So
That's
they
funny.
don't get it. They don't get it. It's
Exactly.
hilarious. Yeah, everything hurts. My husband is 56 now, so he's going to be 57. And he kind of goes to the gym as well, but every time he starts putting on a little bit more muscle, he's like, oh, my heart. My heart. And I always kind of laugh, but I kind of get where he's coming from, because all that mass, it really puts a strain on your cardiovascular system. It's not healthy.
Wow. I'm getting too fit. I'm going to have a heart attack because I'm too fit.
No, it's the too heavy part, because the heavier you are, it doesn't matter whether it's fat or muscle, you get heavy.
Yeah.
I mean, I know I'm much heavier now than I used to be, even when I was a little bit chunky, some like 10, 12 years ago. But yeah, I weigh the same. In fact, sometimes I actually weigh more, but I quite clearly am not big. It was actually a very, really tough thing for me to come to terms with. Purely because I was used to being a skinny, tiny, skinny mini thing ever since I was 19, and then I got to 32, and then suddenly I kind of gained like 22 pounds, 30 pounds out of nowhere. I was like, what is this? What happened? I can't be eating pizzas anymore and staying skinny. Boo. Is there such a thing as seasonality in the markets, meaning spring and fall are better than summer and winter, or did it exist at one time and now the game has changed? It's still there, I would say. Again, depends what you're trading. Gold doesn't tend to suffer as much from seasonality. And obviously this year we've had the Russia-Ukraine nonsense happening, so it's literally brought a lot of liquidity back into the markets. Last year, it was pretty quiet. It was like a normal, summertime trading in crude oil. But previous year, again, we had COVID, so that brought a lot of action. And in fact, it made a lot of the markets a lot livelier than they used to be. So yes, there is seasonality, at least in my markets. Rod, how is the seasonality factor in the equities markets and bonds?
Well, I think the selling may go away. I mean, that you've heard that for a long time. One thing I've commented on a lot in my room, especially since COVID, but I really noticed it even beforehand, is just the whole lunch hour thing doesn't really exist anymore.
It doesn't.
Maybe that is a factor of that's not seasonality, it's just day parts or time of day. But there used to really be a time where a lot of traders in New York and other places, New York time, would go take lunch and be away, and then you come back for the close. But now it's machines on all the time. You can get reactions and quick moves to any kind of news events or for no reason at all. So I think intraday has really changed kind of forever, maybe. But yeah, I think, there's seasonality certainly to the summertime. But remember, sometimes some of the most volatile days can happen in the middle of August on low liquidity, right? So
yeah, because it's easier to move the markets.
Yeah.
That's a very interesting point. That actually ties in pretty nicely with what I talk about in the program, because in the program I finished an update in 2019, and then I kind of added a few things last year. But generally, because I made the program pre-2020, I was talking about the lunchtime hour being really quiet and bringing in fake outs and stuff, so that you should wait until people come back from lunch, because that's how it used to be. So I'm going to have to do another update on that, because that's definitely changed. You almost have, like gold, for example, before, it would just die a death for an hour, and then it would come back after the lunch was over. Now you have the opposite happening. That take profit move, we call that the take profit moves. It basically is very lively during the lunch hours. So if you want to trade gold and you want to fade the move for the day, it's not actually a bad idea to do it for lunchtime. So it never used to be like that. And I've been doing this for like 14 years now. So yeah, let's hope that that's changed, because that actually suits me. Because I get to finish my day earlier. When I want to finish my day, I just get like my 3 trades in and I'm done. But yeah, there is seasonality, but I think it's been subdued because of all the black swan events that we've been experiencing in the last 3 years. All right.
I'm starting to scale some trailing stops on some shorts, like NASDAQ. I'm short from 829, and I'm just trailing it down 790s here. So little short fades on the stock indices. We've had some weak closes. Today we're at the very top of the range, but the NASDAQ has closed. The market's been closing weak this whole week, so taking advantage of that. We'll see.
Yeah, I'm still here on this. Oh, I see. Okay, nice. This is NASDAQ.
10 minutes until the market on close orders come out. So
yeah, and that's always a fun thing to watch. So let's put that on the left. And I like to go down to like 5 minutes because you can really see the change, maybe even 2 minutes. Right, my little trade is doing nicely. You will notice that I don't skimp on stop losses. I have my way of scaling stop losses. I do prefer the hard stops, but again, it depends what I'm trading. One thing that I'm interested here, I can see a ledge. So I'm going to remove this thing here. This is a bit of a ledge. So a ledge has a pretty high probability of getting tested. Whether we've got time for that now, because obviously when the volumes fall off, it's a little bit difficult to call anything high odds. But yeah, so whenever you see a ledge which has some space around it, it's like the sticky outy area on the profile, that usually gets tested intraday. Now, what happens from there on out, that's a whole different thing. But yeah, that is working in the favor of this trade. Of course, with intraday, we might run out of time because most of these companies now ask to close all positions 1 minute before market close. Top Step and Earn to Trade still allow you to carry over 10 minutes after the official market close. But yeah, Apex
you can close. Apex you can trade all the way to the 5 p.m. close.
Really? Because online, on their website says they want you to close it at like 58 past.
Yeah, but that's 250. That's 258. It's 158 my time Pacific. So it's 458.
So it's it's 8:58. That's what I'm saying. Whereas Top Step and Earn to Trade, they give you 10 minutes leeway.
Right, only 10 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Where you get an extra 50. You get an extra 49 minutes with Apex.
Yeah, so that's the only problem with this, that we're going to run out of time. So this is why I don't like trading crude oil this late. But hey ho, it is what it is. It appeared late. Ocean wants to know, D, on the free version of MT5, do we get data and what is the symbol for DAX and Footsie? You're not going to get Footsie because Footsie is LSE. It's not Eurex. So AMP doesn't have that. But DAX depends on whether you go micro, whether you're doing micros or full DAX. And I wouldn't suggest full DAX because it's crazy. Full DAX is DD. Micro DAX is FDXS. It's got 4 letters. So that's the Eurex thing. There's also a DAX Mini as well. So that's FDXM. So those are your symbols. And yes, it's all free on MetaTrader 5. So you can practice all you want. No data fees, no nothing. No platform fees, no licensing, nothing. It's very good. Not the data, it doesn't cost that much these days, but the licensing is quite a lot on some platforms. So it's always good to save a bit of money, right? All right, 5 minutes to craziness in equities. Let's see what's going on in crude oil and some other time frames. Yeah, slow crawl. very slow. See, one of my strategies of how I approach trading multiple products is to focus on. I used to focus on Forex back in the day when it was still moving in the morning. And then I would come to trade the commodities for the first part of the New York session. And then I would trade equities for the last part of like a couple of hours of the session. That used to work pretty well. Now I rarely trade London. And if I do, I usually trade crude oil because it's been moving so well there that you can find a trade any session basically, which is easier because you don't have to hop between different products, which I kind of hate doing. But yeah, so if you're somebody who works full time and you can only do after hours and stuff, I would probably suggest that it depends where you are in the world, obviously, but if you can only trade the last part of the session, then the equities have to be the primary product that you choose. Anything else, you're going to be missing out all the action and then sitting there and getting really frustrated. It's really important to choose the right product for the time of day that you're available to trade. Because I see way too many people who are like, oh, I want to trade crude oil, but I can only trade it in the last hour. I was like, okay, good luck with that one. So, yeah. All right, things are starting to liven up now in NASDAQ, I can say. Rod, which bond symbol should newer traders trade, or should they trade it at all?
So I like the whole complex, but I would say I would start with the ZN, which is or TY on other platforms, the 10-year note. Bonds, obviously, with the current rate environment and uncertainty around inflation, those things are very active now. So they're moving up quite a bit. They moved as much as the stock indices. By the way, getting a nice little push lower in the NASDAQ here.
Yeah.
So I would start with the ZN, but a smaller contract is the ZF. So ZF is a 5-year, and that's half the size of the ZN. And then the ZN is about half the size of the ZB. The ZB is the 30 long-year bond. It'll kind of do its own thing. And that's just too big a contract, I think, for most newer traders.
What's the tick value there?
So the tick value is a little over $31.
That's a lot.
In bonds in the bond structure, they're $1,000 a point. There's 64 ticks in a ZN. There's 32 ticks in a ZB. 128 ticks in the ZF. So, but there's also some smaller. They don't have great liquidity, but they're good enough for retail traders. There's some actually interest rate futures out there now too, which are not inversely, so you can trade. And the symbols for those are just 10Y and 5Y and 30Y. So you might want to check those out as well. And unlike the inverse relationship, if you think that rates are going up, you just go long the 10Y instead of shorting the ZN. So
cool. Yeah, the bonds have been moving quite a lot since the whole COVID stuff's happened. They used to be really static. One of the reasons why I didn't like fixed income, because you would just sit there and I would go off to lunch and stay in a trade for 4 hours and come back and it's like, oh great, it's moved 3 ticks. Lovely. So I just never really, it didn't really suit my personality, I guess, because I like a little bit more movement, and I like to get in on a trade and see that it has a bit of traction. But now bonds are doing that. I was like looking at the charts the other day, and I'm like, wow, that's changed.
Yeah, I mean, if you bring up the ZN, you'll see that from the CPI print yesterday, it's filled in a very similar range to the NASDAQ. I mean, it's traded really nicely, essentially 1.5, so $1,500 range.
Yeah, I'm just tracking my crude oil here, so I'm going to take that off because we're getting to the last 10 minutes, and sometimes it can pull back towards the end. So, okay. Not the biggest trade, but there you go. Just adding nicely onto the day's profits. Here we go. Action in NASDAQ. Let's make that bigger. it almost always turns around. Whatever it's been doing, like up until that point, it just pops the other way. Ocean Blue says, "How's Rita and Jeffrey doing? Haven't seen them. I always like their questions." I don't know. I haven't seen them either. I asked Jeff about his dog because his dog had like cancer and stuff, so I wanted to see how he's doing. And yeah, I mean, he's still trading. I think he's just very busy at the moment. His son is choosing a college, so it's all a little bit crazy, and he just doesn't have a lot of time to sit on the streams. And he's a doctor, and he also runs another business with his wife, so it's like he's got a lot of stuff going on. So yeah, and Rita, again, I haven't seen her either. Usually she pops in and she gives me a private message as well, but I haven't heard anything. So so yeah, I'm not sure what's happening. Maybe we can they're both on Twitter, so if you're interested. Jesus, who's going somewhere? Did you hear that? That was so loud. Ridiculous. Yeah, so you can always get in touch with them on Twitter and just go, hey, what's up? Because I think Jeff is Brady fans, I believe, and Rita is Rio de Janeiro, I think, something like that. Oh, Xavier says, D and Rod, do you trade Dow Jones at all? Should I trade it or not? Rod, that's your question.
You absolutely should trade it. So if it's just starting out, not only trade it, trade the MYM. That's the smallest contract on the board. It's 50 cents per tick. And for what we do, it's a great learning tool because it has about half the volatility of the NASDAQ, sometimes even less. And so it's also a great instrument to trade a style that I teach, which is around campaigning around price and working around certain levels because it is so small. So if you're trading the NASDAQ, which has double the volatility, you would be starting with one contract and really not being able to add or campaign, whereas with the Dow you can. So I highly recommend it. It's also very easy to track the underlying. There's only 30 stocks in there. And so you can often see, hey, why is something happening? Like this morning is very weak. JP Morgan reported some very poor numbers, or the market interpreted that way. So it's very easy to look at 30 stocks.
So how much do you look at macro at all, Rod? Like, do you take that into account when it comes to intraday trading?
No, not for intraday, like literally at all. In fact, I really discourage it. I think it's important to be aware of what's happening and formulate some opinions. But even for my longer term investing, I only use one strategy, which is called dollar cost averaging. Everyone knows what that is. It's very, very simple. If I believe in a project, or I believe in a company, or I believe in an asset, I just look to accumulate it at the times in which it seems to be at fair value or undervalued. So I don't care about any of the macro stuff, mostly because there's no one in history that's ever proven the ability to get it right more than once, right? They get it right one time, and then they're a soothsayer. But no,
yeah, financial analysts are laugh. They're like, oh yes, this is going this way, and they're notoriously terribly wrong in all of their convictions. And then people, when they come to me first, they're like, oh, how much macro do you use? And I'm like, very little, if at all, like you, because I found that it just clouds the judgment of whatever is happening. Like, for example, whenever you get inventories report, typically you have moves that have nothing to do with crude oil inventories, nothing. And the amount of people that come to me and go, well, it's a build of like 3 million. It's bearish, no? And I'm like, it's a bearish number, but whether it's going to go down, that's not really how it works. Oh, but why? And I'm like, I don't know. But technicals work better. Like for intraday specifically, I'm like you, Rod. If I'm going to invest in something long term, I take a look at whether it's undervalued, overvalued. I invest in new companies as well. But yeah, even that is not really rooted in much macro at all. So yeah, I guess it's a good thing to just keep a pulse on the events that are happening, but I've never ever based any of my intraday decisions. My macro trading goes to stops at oh, there's an interest rate release. Okay, maybe I should just skip trading that, and that's it. Like the awareness that there is a release that might be super high impact, and that you shouldn't just go like trading like an idiot into it, because you might get slippage, you might get fills that are bullshit and stuff like that. So
Right.
yeah.
I think that's a way of saying filtering out what is important to be aware of, and that all the noise.
Yeah.
Because more recently, there was a long time where I couldn't tell you when PPI, CPI was released because no one cared. There was
Really?
no inflation, right? Now those are releases that are really, really important. There was a time
Yeah,
when, yeah,
that
here in the United
that
States, you had to care if Boehner was going to come out and cry in front of the Senate and talk about, Greek debt relief or whatever, but none of
yeah,
that matters now.
we got beaten into us. We got beaten into us when we were in the prop trading firm, because they are very strict on routine. And at one point, the first prop trading company that I worked at didn't allow you to do anything. Like it's like, oh, PPI, yeah, you cannot trade through it. And I'm like, but why? It's such a yeah, whatever. And in fact, with the supply and demand things that I'm looking at, it was favorable to stay in whilst those releases are happening. And they were like, no, you can't trade. So I actually got a dislike for all of the releases, because you'd be in a pretty good position and the release would be coming up and you would have to cut it. It's kind of one reason why I moved away from Top Step as well, because they insist on certain events. I think they've kind of eased up a little bit, but they were very much reminiscent of my first trading company, where you just had no way of staying in a trade throughout, like Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. You always had some part of a bloody release. That my time was over here was 1:30. That's like, I think that was around 9:30, 12, 1, 2, yeah, or 8:30 a.m. It's like, you have one release that happens before the markets open, and then you would have another release at like a couple of hours later. So you would find a trade and you're like, oh, I have to close it. And it used to annoy me to no end. So when I kind of started trading just for myself, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to hold it through certain releases. And then I realized that PPI doesn't matter. Inventories for crude oil still matters, because it's such a up and down, it kind of starts jerking around, up, down, and then it kind of settles and you're like, right, now I can trade. So I can kind of see the point of staying out of the inventories if you're trading crude oil. But then I've got some students who come to me and they go, right, inventories are coming out, I'm going to close my position in gold. And I'm like, but why? Because it has nothing to do with gold. It's just the inventories in it doesn't touch upon anything gold related. And then people go, oh, I thought you like had to close. Like, I'm like, no, it's a release pertaining to a particular product. So that's another thing, guys, that you need to start looking at. If the release does not, if it's like a release, the UK, I don't know, UK interest rate, that has very little impact on anything US related, okay? Because we're a small country comparatively. No one's going to give a shit what we do with our interest rates. But we really care what the Fed will do with their interest rates, because that's a massive country that has a knock-on effect globally. So naturally, we're going to follow that. But on our own, it really doesn't mean anything. So if you see, UK interest rates, unless you're trading like GBP, or even the euro, but even that is decoupled now because of the whole Brexit thing. So it doesn't have as much. It actually started to diverge. GBP and euro started to diverge for one of the elections, and it never really went back. So if you're relying on any kind of a correlation between those two pairs, you can forget about it. Right, last minute, a little bit more action, but it hasn't actually moved much.
No, I mean, that's one last point I'll mention about macro or even economic events, news events, and things like that. When it's a function of volatility as well, like crude oil inventories really aren't moving the market all that much right after the release for right now, because you have a session range that's like over $5, right?
Yep.
But there were times in the past, and Dee can tell you, that the inventory was a big deal because the volatility was much more compressed. So you could get a big outside move right around the number. But now I watch it each time, and I haven't seen. Sometimes I have to ask my people, like, did the number come out? Like, it doesn't even move.
That was
So
me the other day. It was like,
yeah,
oh, did we get? Because they had that problem with I don't know whether you know, they had a system problem,
yeah, that
and
was a few
last
weeks
week,
ago.
it was
Yeah.
last week, I think.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
and it didn't come out, and then they were like, oh, we're gonna release it the next day. So I was like waiting the next day, and I'm like, oh yeah, be careful, guys. Release is coming, and then nothing, and I'm like, did it come out? And then when it finally came out, it was like such an anticlimactic moment that I think nobody cared by then. So yeah, the releases are a bit of a weird thing. So I would be aware of them, but don't put any kind of the technical weight onto the decisions that go into your trade locations, because ultimately it's just an excuse to move the market to any available level that is a high probability reversal level. That's at least my experience with those kind of releases. And whatever happens will happen anyways. So as long as you have those orientation points, you should be fine. So just don't trade outside of them. Ocean Blue says Japan is very small, but their money is important. Yeah, that's because yen is, I suppose, used to be considered a safe haven, and it still has a very high correlation with equities. But yeah, it's kind of not as important as it used to be. I don't think it's come into focus recently purely because they refuse to follow or to adjust their monetary policies in light of the Fed raising their rates. So that's why everybody's talking about them. But they've been at like negative interest rate for a long time now. I don't know whether they still are because I don't really trade the yen anymore. But yeah, it's
They remain important because I mean they're still the third largest economy in the world. So
of course, yeah. But
so
again, not as important as the US, I don't think, because you guys
but
really have a lot of power.
yeah, well, that's
A lot of
because
power.
we're the biggest economy, and China is a closed economy, so you have
Yeah.
that. But then Japan is the next, and I believe
Yeah,
then
China rigs their numbers, so
yeah, I think Germany
put
after
them
that,
on.
and then
Yeah.
the UK probably.
I'm not so sure about that. I think maybe France might be ahead of us, but they're socialists
There's
again.
no way
So
France has a bigger GDP than the UK. No way.
I
I
don't
hope I'm
know,
not
man.
wrong, but I would be shocked.
I don't know. We don't really have that much going for us over here. I haven't really.
It,
Again, I've moved away from the whole forex thing and stuff, so I don't really follow it actively. But last time I looked with the Brexit and stuff, we were going to be in a lot of trouble because all of our like exports and stuff, when that falls away, we don't really have that many industries here. We have the city, which accounts for 30% of income of the country. So the city of London is like Wall Street in New York. And that brings in a lot of revenue for the UK. We were actually worried that when we got out of Brexit, because we have a lot of people coming from the States and from a whole bunch of other countries as well, Germany, they all come here to trade and to work for banks, and obviously they all have to pay tax here. So we were afraid that what happens to a country when 30% of the revenue goes away? Chaos. I don't think it's been that much of an impact purely because of we are the English-speaking country, probably the only English-speaking country apart from like Dublin or something. And Dublin is cool, but it's bloody cold over there, much colder than here. And then you have Amsterdam, pretty fun. But so where do you go? There's not a lot of choices for people who want to trade this market and work for banks. It's always going to be London. So we have that kind of power, the power of time zone. And that's pretty much the only thing we've got going on. But the rest of it, our industries are not really that large. They're really not that large.
I'm still going to say your top 5. If I had to guess, and I'm not looking at anything, I would say US, China, Japan, Japan, Germany, UK, France, India. There you go. I'll go top 7 or 8, something like that. Okay. Anyway, who cares? we'll see. But yeah,
look it up. Yeah,
probably 2 or 3 trillion. Maybe Italy after.
Yeah,
Italy maybe before India. Dee, I'm going to have to
Okay.
drop here. We're just a little after 1 o'clock, so
Yeah,
we're gonna.
I'm gonna go as well. So guys, thank you so much for joining us. Let's do this all over again. In the meantime, don't do anything silly. Have a good rest of the day, and we'll see you again next Thursday.
Thanks, everybody.